So I was recently in a homeschool forum where myself as well as other mothers are talking about their homeschooling experience and just kind of sharing information with one another. And there was somebody who commented something that we hear all the time in homeschool, which is that her kid doesn't like to homeschool. It's like pulling teeth. I think we've all been there at some point. I'd like to think all of us have been there at some point, maybe go through it regularly actually. And I shared some of my thoughts with her on how I go through this process of trying to get through that period of where your child just does not want to homeschool and it's like pulling teeth. And I figured I would share that information with you guys in case any of you are new to homeschooling or need an idea. This is just the system that I personally go through. I find that one of these things usually works for my kid. So if you're not aware, this is year 4 of homeschooling for me and my littles, and I have a second grader. We don't really do grades, but technically like a second grader, 7 years old, going into 8 years old. And the other child is preschool 4, soon going on 5. So, well, they're 5.5, 7.5. Anyways, that's what I'm currently working with. So it's year 4. And before this, I actually did work with children in a learning setting for about, I think it was about 8 years. So I've had experience with this through a more traditional learning setting as well as homeschooling. But once again, these are the things that work for me. I hope that one of them will work for you or a combination of them. And also, if you have really great ideas, leave them in the comments below for other mothers to read through. Let's just help each other out in this community, okay? Well, let's go ahead and look at my list. So the very first thing that I think about is, are we homeschooling regularly? If we're not homeschooling regularly and it's not part of our usual flow, of course they're going to be upset. I'm taking them away from just strictly playtime, which is their favorite thing in the world, you know, at these young ages, and putting them directly into learning time. Now, our learning is fun. It's not boring and just sit down and only do this and that on worksheets. We do a lot of hands-on things, but regardless, my child knows it's time to homeschool, which means we're not playing, and that upsets her. So the first thing is you just have to make sure that you have a very regular schedule, or at least like a flow of an expectation. That doesn't mean you have to school every single day at the same time. It just means that your child has to kind of know what's coming, you know, like they know how their day goes. They know that homeschooling comes after breakfast and morning chores or whatever it may be, or at some point in the day. The important thing is just to make sure that you touch on homeschooling as often as you had set out to originally. So if you only plan to homeschool 3 times a week, then make sure that you are homeschooling those 3 times a week. All right, so the first thing is always, are you doing this regularly? Is it a part of their expectations? They know that it's coming, and it's just part of their day. That's the very first thing that I would say. And if you haven't been consistent, that's okay. It's always okay to start at any point. Random hair floating around. It's okay to start at any point. So you can start today. If you're feeling like you're just not regular enough with the homeschooling as an expectation, then start today and continue every day that you set out to. So for us, it's Monday through Thursday, or at least 4 days a week. We are homeschooling, and I try my best to meet that every single week so that we are very regular and it's expected in their day. The next thing I look at is the curriculum. A lot of times when my kiddo is upset and not wanting to do it, it's because it's a curriculum that just doesn't speak to her. That means that it's not fitting her learning style, it's not interesting enough, maybe it's a subject she just doesn't like. Whatever it may be, the curriculum probably is not speaking to her or making her feel like learning is valuable or that it can be fun to do. So when this is the case, there are 2 ways to go about it. The first one is I think about, do I need to nix this curriculum altogether? Is it just not a good fit and we need to find a different style of curriculum for her, or do we need to ditch curriculum for now and do other ways of learning the same lesson? There are many ways you could go about it, but you just have to understand, any video you watch, you're going to hear probably a homeschool mom say, like, sometimes you're just going to have to get rid of a curriculum you just paid for, which isn't fun, right? We paid for it, we're invested, we want to use it, but sometimes it's just not the correct curriculum for our kids, and so we have to be okay with swapping it out, regardless of our own financial investment into it, or maybe even our expectations of it being wonderful for our kids. Sometimes what we think is wonderful really isn't. The second way that I like to think about it, and maybe this could come first to save you some money, is to only use the curriculum as like a reference guide. You don't have to follow the curriculum word by word, moment by moment, point by point. it can be used as a guide. So you can say, okay, today's reading lesson is on open and closed syllables and short and long vowels. Do I have to do the game in here if it's not interesting to my kid? Or whatever lesson it is, or can I find some way to incorporate it into a game that they love? Or maybe they love using the dry erase board, right? My kid loves the dry erase board and loves to do activities on them. So just think of different ways that you can still do those lessons and only using the curriculum as the reference. That way you save the money that you already invested, but you're meeting your child's needs more by creating games or other learning styles that they enjoy more. Okay, so the third thing to consider is that there might be a mental block going on. And when there's a mental block, your kid can really have some tears flowing, be frustrated with whatever you're doing. It could be like pulling teeth. Now, the important thing with this, what I'm about to say, is that you wait to address it in a non-pressured situation, is what I guess I'll say. And what I mean by that is I look for opportunities to bring it up. I believe in like play therapy, which is where you play games with your kids and can get them to address things going on. You can do that through role play of figurines. So she could be one character, you could be the other, and you guys can talk it out through those figurines, or you can just be playing side by side and talking it out. And that's what I choose to do. So you can sit down with your kid, play blocks or color together, whatever it may be, paint, and you just ask questions and listen, and you don't look to give a lot of responses unless they're looking for it. But I recommend just listening, maybe repeating some of the things they said to make it clear that you are hearing them, and then take that information and start to think about what to do from there. So I would ask questions like, what do you think about the curriculum we're using? How do you feel about learning? Is there something that you feel like mommy could do better to help you with the learning experience, or to want to learn or make it more fun? Is there anything that you like that I'm doing that we should do more? Is there anything you'd like to see done during homeschool? Are the subjects we're talking about interesting? Like, those are all the questions that you would want to ask and kind of gauge how your kid's doing, to figure out if it's simply that there's a block going on, whether it's not the best learning style, or maybe an uninteresting subject, or maybe it's something you're doing. There's a good chance that it's something that you're doing, because most of us, some of us not, but most of us are deschooling ourselves, and we struggle to think outside of the box sometimes on how to meet our child's learning needs. So yes, I just highly recommend taking the time to do a low pressure situation. Let your child talk out all their feelings on your questions, make those mental notes, maybe write them down after the conversation, and make changes accordingly. And I'll say there's two. The next thing that I want to always make sure of, this is something that I always make sure of. The first three are kind of the things that I go over to see what changes need to be made. But sometimes it's this specifically, okay? And that is that your child doesn't want to sit still. If your child is sitting still, they're probably not liking it, okay? Some kids can do it, but most can't. And I have some very rambunctious children, and I'm okay with that. I don't expect them to sit still and quiet the way an adult would for 45 minutes. I mean, even as an adult, that's not the funnest thing to do. Like, think about when you went to lectures in college. It was not fun to just sit there. The learning was fun to me, but just sitting there was not, really long lectures. Same with, sometimes you feel like church service is a little too long, like it's just hard to sit that long and to be quiet. So I make sure that they have options for getting that energy expelled. So we swap out, as you guys know, we swap out chairs for yoga balls. They have the option for the chair or the yoga ball. 99% of the time they choose the yoga ball. We have sensory related toys that they can fidget with. We have sensory bins, right? In between subjects, we do brain breaks where we take the time to physically move our body. You don't always have to use brain breaks to physically move, but that's what my kids like. So we literally go on YouTube, type brain breaks, and you'll find like fun little activities where they're like running and jumping and dodging and things, and they love to expel that energy in between lessons. We get up and we sing songs and we dance. We do all those kind of things. So it's okay to let your child expel that energy. We have a rule where if mommy's talking, you cannot talk over me, because, kids are notorious for that as well. But you can fidget with your hands and body all you need. So they are very used to painting or coloring or playing with sensory toys or sensory bins while I talk. That's totally normal in our house and totally okay. So that's something else you need to keep in mind. Let your child expel the energy. They're not misbehaving or not listening just because they're expelling energy. And yes, sometimes you do have to remove things that are a little too distracting. That has happened, and my kids are aware of that, so they often make sure that the thing doesn't become the distraction because they don't want it removed. So as long as you set regular expectations around moving and understanding that it's okay to an extent, and then like let's not go out of control with the moving, most of the times kids are gonna listen to you on that. So I highly recommend making sure that your children have options to expel energy. Okay, and the very last thing I want to bring up is that food is so important. Kids are so hungry. Any of you watching this video know kids are expensive when it comes to food. Most of us have kids that eat a lot. Even if they're picky eaters, they still eat a lot. My 2 kids eat a lot, especially my youngest. So snacks, okay? Like, we have regular breaks for snacks. Some people are okay with, if we're learning upstairs, I do this. If we're learning downstairs, I don't, because I don't like food in our basement. It's gross to me if it gets left down here and doesn't get cleaned up. So you can always have food options available. Leave a snack tray out, a charcuterie charcuterie board, you know, just healthy snacks. You could have them, like, I think in Ogosby Ohana, she has shared before that she has pre-cut snacks in Ziploc bags ready to go in the fridge. We have a snack box that I bring down and let them choose from. And yeah, food is so important to little kids. So if they can learn and eat at the same time while expelling energy, it's a much better experience all around for everybody. But yeah, those are the main things I would say are pretty important in our household to having a thriving homeschool. If you're interested in learning more about the brain breaks I was talking about, click this video on the top right here for more information. And if you would like to see more about our homeschooling, click the second video here. I'll see you over there in one of those videos. Have fun homeschooling.